But anyway, the force particles behave differently as elementary particles under rotations than the matter particles. All right. So these matter particles, you have to basically rotate them 720 degrees to return them to their original state. All right. Whereas most objects, you rotate it 360 degrees and you get back to where you started. But it's described in an unusual way. It's described as a column of complex numbers or a column matrix, if you like, that's acted on by a rotation matrix that tells you specifically how these particles transform under rotation.
Honestly, that wouldn't make any sense to me. And I don't think I can help all of my audience to get it.
This is the thing. So this is the way physicists are introduced to a description of electrons.
So now imagine that you have these objects that are rotating, right, independently of each other, right? And so there's going to be a moment in which one of these particles here interacts with another one, right? And there's going to be the energy from that. Now imagine that while they're doing that, they're also rotating this way. So from the perspective of any one of these particles, they did rotate 360, but now that they've rotated 360 and they've rotated in another dimension that they are not consciously aware of, they ended up interacting on this side, right? And so everything now is perceived to have been just a 180 flip. But in reality, that's just the way the perception system is working in an effort to build up the higher level of dimensions off of the...
In studio, these beautiful Klein bottles from Acme Klein Bottle and Cliff Stoll out of Oakland, I guess. These objects that I'm holding up, or you can look up Klein bottles on the web, have this very odd property that they are covered, if you will, by the surface of a donut if the surface of the donut wraps around this object twice. And we call this a double cover. Now, the idea that you have some very strange object with no inside and outside called a Klein bottle, but that it's wrapped twice by some object which has different properties, namely the surface of a donut called a torus. The rotations of our three-dimensional space bizarrely have some object that covers them twice, just as a donut covers a Klein bottle twice.
And is wearing a cap. If I were to pick it up and rotate it in the third dimension and then place it back, that might be enough of a clue that I've visited. No one in the second dimension could have done this because it required a movement in the third dimension, and no one in 2D will ever be able to rotate it back to normal.
So if we take her two-dimensional character and we throw her onto this program that I have with these rotating planes, you'll see how we can get not only an inverse, right, a chiral or a mirror reflection with respect to the antimatter and the antimatter's reflection, but you'll also see how we can induce gravity as well as curvature of space and time with respect to their correct orientation. So at the moment of the intersection, right, you're going to have whatever intersection you have here, you're going to have the chiral or the mirror image on the opposite side. Imagine that the bisecting lines would be the area where basically they are spontaneously propagating into and out of existence. So imagine for whatever reason, right, there's the intersection at some point in time. Now there's going to be some system that propagates you here, takes you out, then repropagates the mirror and objective. And it happens so quickly that you're not consciously aware of it. And so you're never really there exactly at the time when your mirror image is there, but there is the reflection or there is the reaction or the response left over from them propagating through the system. This would be kind of analogous to our subjective versus objective hemispheres, the idea that we have this inverse correlation to the synapses. So now understanding that inertia mass, or basically the acceleration or mass that you feel as you're moving or accelerating into a direction, is the same as gravitational. And so at the moment that it propagates this point here with its feet on this rounded surface, it's actually basically instantaneously moving upward, but then cutting out. And so it's that snap moment. So now you'll see the same way we have our star or our moon above our heads and the ground below us, the same way you can see how it propagates from the head down and how the curvature is with respect to where the feet are because of the movement of the object with respect to the reference frame. It gives you the perception of space-time curvature, the perception of gravity, how it interacts outside of their perception outside of their dimension. And it also gives you the idea of chirality, basically the mirror inverse, as well as matter with respect to antimatter. So imagine like this is me. This would be my antimatter. That's my chiral image. That would be its antimatter. Don't really interact with it so much, but there's more of the interaction between the chiral partners. And then I'm sure there'll be more interaction between the antimatter and the existing matter. So as well as it can be done in my future, hopefully. That's what we're going to be doing, is fucking around with some antimatter so we can get some real special stuff going. I'd really like to walk through walls, teleport, do all sorts of crazy stuff soon, hopefully. Soon. So when you look at this object in the center that basically looks like the star or the moon, you actually see where I have a picture of the moon and it has that same line bisecting it. You recognize that particles, the protons, basically moving through a magnetic field like this, the propagating light itself is what our reality is fundamentally made out of. Understand that light's propagating into and out of these walls. I'm only here because this is the frequency at which my mass and consciousness is resonating at with respect to the particles around me. But for any point in time, above me is light, below me is the ground. Curvature is with respect to where my feet are. But that's only part of who and what I am, because there's the chiral image of me. There's the reflection I see in the mirror.